I'm doing all of this like exercise and all of this like upbeat activation stuff, but actually it's not helping me regulate my nervous system. It's actually keeping me on the whole time. And then I'm going into an office which is keeping me on the whole time. But where's the softness? There was no gap between like the thought and the action. It was just action the whole time. Getting in touch with my breath. I needed that to actually create the distance between my thought and my action.
Welcome to the Morning Ritual Podcast. Here we uncover how small daily practices hold the key to a more aligned life. Rituals help us turn the mundane into the meaningful. They help us remember our values and visions and realign us with who we really are. This is not about overnight transformation. It's about intentional living, having presence over perfection. Each week, we hear from teachers, artists, healers, and creators about the rituals that keep them grounded, clear, and aligned. Their stories remind us that living intentionally isn't just possible, it's transformative. So take a breath and settle in. Welcome to the show, Will. It's so cool to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me, Lily.
It's been so nice to get to know your story and experience your work one-on-one. For our listeners, I am here with Will. We're in the studio in London, which is such a treat because not all my guests can make it here. And we got introduced by a mutual friend, Claire, and she experienced your work as a breathwork facilitator and was like, you two gotta meet. So yeah, just giving context to you guys, I had a session with Will a few weeks ago, and we did it's called FBR, right? Facilitated
Breath Repatterning, yeah.
Breath Repatterning. And I was like, okay, we got to have him on the podcast. So here you are.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah.
And basically, Will has a really cool story because he quit his corporate job recently to become a full-time breath teacher, but it was through the breath work that you were able to take this leap. So let's back it up. And I want to hear that story from you.
Yeah. As in me quitting my job and everything that came before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what job, what corporate job were you in where you were like, this has got to end?
So I was in, taking it back a few steps. I trained as a real estate professional. I went to university, studied real estate. My uncle's brother-in-law was super into real estate. And I grew up with him. So I was like, this guy's the dude. He goes out for lunches, gets drunk. This is it. I know
the dream.
Yeah, this is the dream. When I was in my teenage years, I was like, this is all I want to do.
Yeah.
I was slightly different back then. And, so I kind of bumbled into London, after doing my real estate degree, worked at a couple of big corporate companies, but always just really struggled. I was thinking that it was just going to be pretty seamless. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go in, I'm going to be epic at this job. And then I just got into an office and I was just my nervous system was just hey, I don't like this. I didn't really have a way out, So I just carried on doing that for 10 years. So
what did the struggle feel like? Was it more on the end of low energy, kind of depressed, or was it anxiety, stress? Was it swaying between the two?
It was everything. Honestly,
it
was absolutely everything. It was me knowing that this wasn't right, but then also then kind of not helping myself by just not accepting that maybe this was okay for the time being. Me trying to change it. So me trying to start loads of different businesses that weren't aligned. But we'll come to this in a minute. But when your nervous system is dysregulated, the quality of your thought is obviously much lower, right? So you then start doing things that actually maybe sabotage yourself even more.
Yeah.
So I was definitely in that kind of self-sabotaging mode, drinking a lot. And yeah, just feeling really low. And I just remember looking through some of my notes on my phone. I've got thousands of notes on my phone. You maybe do the same?
I do too. Don't, if I die, don't go through my notes.
I was thinking that. I was actually thinking the other way though. I was thinking actually if I do die, look through them because it'll be fascinating.
Yeah.
Here's my password. So yeah, I was just I just remember just really struggling and I remember at lunchtimes, going out to sit in the park and trying to read a book on meditation. And at that point in time, always having this inclination that there was something else out there around being able to help myself and help others.
Yeah.
I kind of felt that. And I remember like being in Bali like 3 or 4 months ago, being like, shit, I was actually thinking about this like 10 years ago. But it took me 10 years to get to the point of actually like being able to make that change.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think some of it is from like the beliefs that I had from my, you know, from my parents and from childhood about like, hey, look, you just got to like, you know, button down and like, you know, suffering is part of life. And actually like you'll get there eventually. But like we don't have to like always unnecessarily suffer. You know, if something feels really, really off, like every single day and your energy is low, and, you know, I wasn't able to attract like relationships. I wasn't able to like attract the types of experiences and people that I wanted to attract in my life. I got to 30 and I was like, hey, I was like, what is this? Is this actually life?
Yeah.
I really thought like to myself, I was like, no, there's got to be an alternative.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah. And I my perspective is, like the Buddha says, all life is suffering. But then we use the awareness of our suffering to shift it and to change it.
Yeah, I love it.
So it's not life is suffering and you just deal with it and ignore it, which is like so much of what people do. It's like, nope, I'm going to follow the shoulds. I'm going to follow the path. But no, use that as information.
Yeah.
Lean into the pain and the suffering and then use that as a way to shift it.
Yeah, yeah.
So what was the first thing that you did? Like, it sounds to me like you went to the park and you were reading, or you got curious about meditation, or what was the first thing that you really glommed onto to like not feel as stressed? Was it exercising a lot or?
Yeah. I mean, I always had like a pretty good exercising routine. But what I was actually realizing was that I was doing all this exercising and still feeling completely like dysregulated in my nervous system. So actually what I didn't need more like loads more activation. I actually needed more like regulation. I actually needed more softness into my life. But it was like a series of like, there was not one big moment.
Wait, I'm sorry. That is so refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
From a guy.
Yeah.
Needed more softness in his life.
Because I was running these like ultra marathons and stuff. And I was doing these like crazy cycle rides and everything. But I had like chronic lower back pain. And I was just like, I'm doing all of this like exercise and all of this like upbeat activation stuff. But actually it's like, it's not helping me regulate my nervous system. It's actually keeping me on the whole time. And then I'm going into an office which is keeping me on the whole time. Like, where's the softness? Like, there was no like, as we were saying earlier, there was no gap between like the thought and the action. It was just action the whole time.
Yeah.
So actually what I needed was more kind of like, and we'll come to this in a minute, but the more like body-based tools like breathwork, light movement, making sound, you know, getting in touch with my breath. I needed that to actually create the distance between my thought and my action. And the thoughts, then the quality of the thoughts change. And then obviously then the quality of the action changes, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I failed so many times. Like I got fired from my first job just because I took so many days off sick because I was pretty unwell. Like, I was all over the place. And, but then I went back into another job and luckily had one of my closest friends' dad hired me. I did that for like 3 years. But then I got to the point again where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I picked up the phone to him and said, hey, look, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to leave. But then I went for 9 months, like without a job. I had a lot of savings, but I was. So
what did you do? It was 9 months.
Yeah, I was trying to work myself out, but realized that actually, you know, I didn't have much safety in my system at all. And I was really trying to find that safety and find kind of like my purpose, but it probably just wasn't the right time.
Were you in London for most of the 9 months?
Yeah.
Travel?
I was in London for a bit of it, but then I was like going back and forth between Milton Keynes and London because had a really bad lower back. So I managed to like understand a little bit more about my body.
Yeah.
In that time, and my back got a little bit better. But then I went off to like Spain for a month. I was trying to learn like Spanish and everything, but I was having like panic attacks every day. Oh. But it was great. Like, now looking back on that, it was great information for me because it made me realize that, look, you know, when you're making these changes, like you have to have, for me personally, I had to have like some purpose. So that was one of my worries when I went to Bali, like recently. I was like, shit, am I going to have like panic attacks every day? But it was different because I had this purpose. Yeah. So it became a different feeling. Then I went back into the real estate world after my trip to Spain and worked at a really good company. It was super entrepreneurial, but still felt this, like, yeah, there's definitely something more there. But then like every day at this point I was really kind of like, okay, there's definitely something else out there, and I'm actually going to start taking the action.
Yeah. And your senses of this doesn't feel right was really clear. You're like, this isn't what's for me. Okay, this isn't what's for me. Like, you had all of that information.
Yeah.
And so you were like, in that process, you're naturally becoming more clear through not that.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that. So that was important. As
so
painful
important.
as that process is, it's like, okay, we're getting stuff out and we're getting more information. Before we got on the cameras, we were talking about your window of tolerance.
Yeah.
And
amazing
how
concept.
and how your window of tolerance up until this point of the story, I imagine, is pretty small, but starting to get a little larger.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit larger at this point. I think when I first went back into that job, like after coming back from Spain, it was very narrow.
Yeah.
But actually, now looking back on it, being in that job was a total blessing because it was a really entrepreneurial culture and they just really pushed me.
Yeah.
So they put me into scenarios. For example, I was getting on a plane to Italy, flying back and forth from Milan to go and to try and do real estate deals in Milan. And I was really scared of flying at that point in time. So it was really it was kind of like CBT exposure therapy. So I was actually and I was earning some money and I had a nice flat and stuff. So, there was enough safety in my system to actually start trying to, gradually increase that window of tolerance.
Yeah.
And so when actually I got to the point of, hey, I need to quit my job now, as I said earlier, it was like, okay, this is actually palatable. I actually have enough confidence that my window of tolerance is wide enough.
Yeah. And for someone who's never heard the term window of tolerance, like, what do you mean by that?
The window of tolerance is the optimal arousal zone. So basically how much stress you can handle and still feel comfortable.
Okay,
right?
Great.
I think that's the best way of describing it. And obviously the window of tolerance is massively influenced by trauma and our experiences in early life and also our experiences in our life.
Yeah. So when you were in the real estate corporate job, you felt your window of tolerance was really small.
Yeah.
And then as you took time off work to explore more, you started to gain just more life experience, more tools.
Yeah.
That window of tolerance started to grow. And when you were flying to Milan, you mentioned off camera that you would get panic attacks or you started to feel a lot of anxiety, but you started to send the breath lower into the belly and take deeper breaths, or hand on belly, breathing for 10 minutes, and it shifted your state. So through those experiences, you started to learn more about, okay, when I calm my nervous system, I can have more space between my thoughts and my actions, between me and my emotions. You can start thinking more creatively. Yeah. So this is where the shift really starts to...
100%.
So when did you find breathwork?
I found breathwork 2.5 years ago, I think.
Were you still in your job?
Yeah, I was still in my job. So I came back into real estate, and then I kind of was I still don't think this is right. So now I need to try and
you knew you were close to finding it.
Yeah, I was finding something. I found Pilates in my time out, and I was like, Pilates is epic for my lower back. That really, really helps. I've tried every type of mind-based therapy. I've done CBT. When I was younger, I got diagnosed with OCD, so my nervous system was very sensitive anyway.
Yeah.
And CBT really helped with basically helping me expose some of these perceived threats, running towards them, and then changing the relationship between body and mind to those threats, right? But the body-based stuff was still missing, with the breath. And I was going through a breakup at the time, and I stumbled across something on Instagram. I literally was on Instagram, and it's regulate your nervous system, feel more confident, or something along those lines. And I was clicked on it. I was book the session. So I went up to Seven Sisters, and I'd never been to Seven Sisters in my life before. And I went there and I did this conscious connected breathing, which we'll come to in a second. And that was edgy for me. 3 or 4 years ago, I'd have gone, absolutely no way, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to try that. That's woo woo. That's as we were saying, it's woo woo. I don't get that. But I went, and I as I was leaving the room, one of the ladies said to me, you know what I saw in that session? It's you don't breathe in your belly at all. I was like, oh, right, that's interesting. It's if you put your hand on your belly and start breathing in your belly more, your life's going to change. And she literally said that to me, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll try it, but I'm still not sure if that is actually the case. But I remember just about to get onto the tube after the session and being I just feel different. I can feel my feet. I felt grounded. I felt okay, this is interesting. this has changed the relationship that I have with my body. And I feel more in my body.
Yeah.
And it was a really different feeling. I never had that feeling after therapy or anything else. I hadn't experienced that. The crazy thing is, I hadn't experienced that feeling since being like 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was that type of moment. I stood like next to the tube. I can remember it so clearly being like, oh yeah.
Yeah. I will never forget where I was, the exact placement of the mat that I was during my first yoga class. And I was a teenager, so it happened a little earlier in my journey, but I was a very anxious child.
Yeah.
OCD tendencies, super anxious, never felt in my body. And I did this yoga practice at like 15 years old, and we ended with 3 ohms, which is my favorite way to end a practice. And at the end of 3 ohms in Shavasana, I felt my whole body go, whoa,
really,
and land on the earth. And I remember thinking, I haven't felt like this.
Wow.
I was 7.
How did you feel about making the OMS though? Because, 15, if someone asked me to do an OM at 15, I would have probably may have just had a meltdown, to be honest.
I had a little giggle.
yeah, you had a little.
I had a giggle, and then I was like, whoa. And from that moment, I was like, this is what I'm going to do for my life.
Yeah, amazing.
And of course, teenager, I went to be a professional dancer, and I had other life experiences, but I was like, I'll never forget that moment. Front row, little to the left, that third O, I dropped. And then I came away from the earth, and then I dropped down, and now it's
Sure.
But I felt that feeling, and I was like, okay, this is what I need more of. So I can so relate to you.
Yeah.
Like, I felt my feet.
Yeah. Sounds silly, doesn't it? But it's so it's so profound when if you've like what you're saying, like, we spend so much time in our heads.
Yeah.
We're so on the whole time. And then all of a sudden to have this respite, this feeling of groundedness of hey, this is what, I want a little bit more of this.
Yeah. So did you go to more conscious connected?
I was obsessed. Yeah.
Oh, you were obsessed?
No. I had to be obsessed. Yeah. I was leaving work early, either to do Pilates or to do conscious connected breathing.
Oh,
and, I was just going to all of the different workshops across London, started having one-on-one sessions. With that, I was just able to change my relationship slightly to stress. And everyone goes, you're quite interested by this, aren't you? And I was like, yeah, I'm quite interested by this. This is definitely something that is really helping me. And people could tell. So you, on that journey, you're validating it yourself. You kind of have an inclination that it's really good, but then people start telling you. And then you're like, yeah, okay, this is probably quite good, isn't it?
And it's not just your mind being like, I should do this. It's your body being like, I feel the difference. I want to do this again. And yeah, I can see that it's also connected to as cheesy as this may sound, but it's really connected to your heart and to your, on a deeper level, your purpose and your soul. So all roads are leading to this is the path for you. And that's amazing.
Yeah.
And conscious connected breath, I really had never heard of before I moved to London. So I moved here about 4 years ago, and a couple months into living here, a new friend invited me to conscious connected breath.
Yeah.
And I remember going, and I think they were quite advanced breath people around me because they dropped in.
It sounds so funny.
You're
an advanced breather. This is what people used to say to me at work. Are you still are you an advanced breather, or are you still breathing right? And I was like, that's the misconception, isn't it?
Yeah, no, but I felt like everybody's there comfortable in the setting. I'm a first timer. Anytime you're new in any setting, it's going to be a little freaky. I didn't know what to expect. And people dropped in, and the tears and the releases that happened, it kind of made me freak out a little bit. And I didn't get it. So I went to another one. I went to a few, and I've had with each one a slightly deeper experience. But I am not racing to go back to the group conscious connected settings, because I felt in the courses in the classes that I've been to, there's 20 people, a few facilitators, but I didn't feel the safety that I think I needed. And then when I did work with you, I know it's not conscious connected breath, but it's
a refined form of
it's a refined form of it.
Okay. Yeah.
But to me, being one-on-one, having the somatic, the touch, having your guidance, you really let me go at my own pace, which at first I was like, am I going too slow? I was in my head. You're just honor your breath. I felt so held and so safe. And I would run to do that again.
Yeah, brilliant.
I am still a little bit not comfortable in the group, but the one-on-ones is where my comfort zone is at. So what is, let's go. I'm like so fascinated by this story.
Yeah.
So anyways, let's back up to you. You go into all these groups. You're obviously diving in. You're seeing the change within yourself. And you said that your ability to handle stress was getting better.
Yeah, definitely. Because during these sessions, what we're doing is we're like dosing like stress into the system, similar to like what we have like with an ice bath, right? So we're going into this like activation, right? By like speeding up our breath, going into this like almost like hyperventilated state. We're like our body goes into this like stress response. And, you know, when we've got, as you were saying around the safety, when we've got the safety to hold that stress response, we can go into it during the session and then we can kind of integrate it during the relaxation phase. And actually, like when I first started doing breathwork, I was feeling this stress and it was almost like I could have gone into a panic attack.
Yeah.
It was a lot, you know, because I was going to certain workshops where there wasn't a massive amount of safety. It was definitely one size fits all breathwork. But I was able to hold myself through those situations. And then, so when I got back to the, you know, what I was doing on my day to day, which was doing my real estate job, but then also exploring new things, the stress didn't feel as bad. The stress, I could reframe the stress and be like, okay, that's okay. I've been into that stress during the breathwork session. I know I can go into the stress here, you know? And so it was just a reframing actually. And I think that's what like nervous system, like for a long time I was thinking it's all about nervous system regulation. I've got to feel regulated. I've got to feel regulated. But if you're always thinking about being regulated, then you never actually like go outside the window. And we have to go outside this window a little bit, like over a slightly longer period of time. But we go out, but then we come back in.
Yeah.
You know, and by doing that, we expand the window of tolerance, right?
Yeah. And stress is inevitable. So if we're always seeking like a calm nervous system, that if stress happens, we're like, no, it's bad.
Yeah.
Actually, no, go into the stress, feel the agitated state, and then
come back.
Allow yourself to come down. And it's that dance between the two, and learning to dance between the two
100%.
is so important.
It's like what our like, you know, our like ancestors would have done. They would have gone out the cave. And me and my cousin used to joke about this. We'd be like, because I used to live with him, used to be like, I was out the cave today. But then I came back out, but then I come back into the cave in the evening and we have a dinner together and we have that safety and we have that regulation, and that's great because then we can go again the next day.
It's not just live in the cave.
No, it's not live in the cave, but it's definitely not living outside the cave.
Yeah.
We've got to return to the baseline. And I think that was what the issue that I had, you know, when I was in Spain and I was having those panic attacks. I had no, like, my cave wasn't safe.
Yeah.
You know, I was kind of just living on a sofa and it wasn't right. It was a bit rogue. So a funny experience, but.
So then you get to this place where you're like, okay, I found my calling. And now you feel grounded enough, clear enough, held enough by your practices and in your own self where you're ready to take this leap. Yeah. How was taking the leap?
Well, I mean,
what was that like?
So I'd done a conscious connected breathing training last year in Europe. So, and my work didn't know about it. So I was kind of having to do it a little bit on the side. Which was absolutely fine. Yeah. Right. I didn't feel like I needed to tell them. I wasn't.
No, you wanted to keep it close.
I wanted to keep it close. Yeah. Like my close friends knew that I was doing that. And so I did that and I got my certificate in September last year. So I kind of like validated that I was willing to take the action and I was willing to spend like a lot of my money. I think it was like £7,000 or something. It's quite a lot of money. So I was willing to spend that money, to change. So when I got to that point and when I finished in September, I was like, okay, now what? Still working my job. And, but in the background, I was speaking to this guy called Edward Dangerfield over in Bali.
Great name. Yeah,
wicked name and wicked guy as well. And, I just started messaging him on Instagram. And because I'd listened to one of his podcasts, I felt really inspired. He explained breath in different ways than I'd heard about it before. He was more interested in like our breathing mechanics and how that influences like our the long-term impact on our nervous system. And I kind of wanted to know a bit more about that. So he said, why don't you come over for training in January? I was like, well, that means I actually have to quit my job. You know, I actually have to quit my job at that point. So I kind of like got into this position where I was talking about it a little bit with friends. And I think that's really important when you're on this like journey of change, is actually to put it out there a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, we sit there sometimes and we keep it so close.
I know.
But we've got to tell the universe, like, what we actually want. So I made it my thing.
And there's this thing where it's like, okay, let me just make the change in quiet. And then once it's all good and I'm like, I've got my headshot done, I got my website up, my Instagram going, I'm like testimonials. Once that's all done, I'll come out to the world.
Yeah.
And it's
Did
like,
you have that?
I felt that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, I'm making this big shift. Let me make sure it's like perfect before I go, ta-da. When it's like, no, tell your friends, hey, I'm interested in quitting my job, becoming a breath bike. I don't know. Like start speaking out loud to the people you trust.
Yeah.
And slowly, speak it out to the universe. And like, and things are going to flow that way because if you're like, oh, talk to my friend. She's a breath teacher.
Yeah.
Oh, talk to this person. Yeah. They've had a similar experience. And you're not so alone.
Exactly. And it validates what you're already thinking. And it makes you, okay, yeah, I am really committed to this. And it almost like puts a bit of accountability as well. And I really like that.
Yes.
I really like, and so when I actually got to the point of actually handing in my notice, I had all these people I'd already told.
Yeah.
You know? So I was like, well, I've got to do it now. And, and I also had this like self-accountability, which is, I basically like wrote to myself and signed it, wrote to myself that I'll be like out of my job, and I signed it and put a date. And, it just so happened then on the Monday, I went in and I had a meeting with HR, and I was like, this is a bit strange.
Oh, they scheduled the meeting.
Yeah, they scheduled the meeting out of nowhere. But then I just had this like chat with like 2 external HR people. I said like, yeah, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, but I think there might be something else out there for me. They said, have you spoken to your boss? And my boss is a total legend, by the way. And I said, no, I haven't. But then it's just so weird how these synchronicities happen. I went back to my desk and my boss came over to my desk with his lunch and said, hey, how's it going? Like, what have you been up to? Like, what's going on in Europe? Like the stuff that I was working on. I was like, yeah. Anyway, he went back to his desk. And I just had this feeling of like, I've got to go and speak to him. So I literally went over to speak to him. I was like, DT, can I have like 5 minutes, please?
Oh my gosh, were you nervous?
Yeah, I was quite nervous, but I had this like cool of like, got up from my chair and...
Yeah, you were like, something's come over me.
Yeah. It was literally like that. So I had this like, thing that came over to me, and I went and I took him into a room and talked him through it. And you know what the nicest thing was? He was just like, this sounds really great. It sounds really exciting. So it validated that what I was thinking, and people were always taking the piss out of me in the office about this like breathing stuff, and I quite enjoyed it because it was slightly contrarian, it was different than what everyone else was doing, and I think we all have a bit of that in us, right? Yeah. You want to go against the grain a little bit.
I don't think he would mind me saying this, but my husband Johnny, because it's his personality, kind of jokes about becoming a Pilates teacher because he's like had all these injuries and he loves Pilates and he doesn't like his job. Sorry. And so he's like, I think I want to train to become a Pilates teacher. But then people kind of take the piss out of him, but because he's like, I feel like he's protecting himself by making it kind of light. But actually, if he just owned it, like if he was just like, I want to be a Pilates teacher and did it, I think he would have all the support in the world.
But Lily, isn't that like, in this day and age, isn't this like, that's the boss thing to do?
Yeah.
And that's what I was telling myself. I was like, there's so many people who are just going with the grain. In this day and age, the boss thing to do is go, I'm going against the grain. I'm going to do something super niche. Because I also have this big belief that like niche is good in this day and age.
Yeah.
Do something like, and also what Johnny, like your husband, like he's got a lot of data. He's got a lot of pain. And that gives him a lot of data. So actually, he'd be a great Pilates teacher.
He would.
Probably.
He would.
Funny, isn't it?
I know, but I think it's like when you're ready to take the leap, which you were, and just speak it, you will get the support.
100%.
Because it's coming from a place of truth.
Yeah. And actually, one funny thing as well is, so just before that, was it just before that? Yeah, just the week before that, I'd gone over to Milan with my job. And I was really like oohing and ahhing. I'd like kind of committed to Edward in Bali, but hadn't quit my job yet. And then I stay in a hotel in Milan, and the opposite to me where I'm staying is called
Thai restaurant.
No, it's called Bali Restaurant. And yeah, it's called Bali Restaurant. And I was just like, at this point, I was like, I remember texting my sister and just being like, this has just happened. Like, what should I do? Yeah, just that was a synchronicity. I had all these different synchronicities, but that was one of them that I just loved.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But then on the way back, I was like, shit, if this plane went down, I'd be really pissed off because I hadn't actually like in life, it was a big like meta thing. I was like, I haven't actually lived my purpose. And do you know what I mean? Like, and it was an intrusive thought for sure, but it was also like, no, there's some reality in this as well. So I was like, I've got to go.
Great. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you quit your job, went to Bali. You were there for what, 4 months?
Yeah, so I quit my job. I had to work my notice for a couple of months, and then got on a plane to Bali for the start of January or middle of January.
Great time to leave London.
Yeah, so it was cold and wet, and I got to Bali and it was warm and wet.
I'll take that.
Yeah, so which I 100% would prefer.
Oh, and then you dove deep. You had already done the conscious connected training, but this was FBR, Facilitated Breath Repatterning,
yeah,
which is the one I experienced with you one-on-one.
Yeah.
So how's that different than the conscious connected?
Well, I think
it's like a refined version.
It's slightly refined. So I think generally at the moment, there's a lot of people teaching conscious connected breathing, but I think they're teaching it under a kind of one size fits all. I don't think that's great for everyone's nervous system, right? It might be good for if you're running a conscious connected breathing session and you're trying to help a big group of people. How do you then, everyone's got a different nervous system. Everyone's got a different window of tolerance. So I think what facilitated breath repatterning does is there's two main differences. I'd say 80% of the technique is touch and body work. I think that can help change our breathing mechanics, right? If, for example, with FBR, if you've got a diaphragm that is not moving at all, then with the body work, we can get in there and we can start moving, moving the muscle, moving the fascia, maybe going into the liver, because the liver obviously sits right below the diaphragm. So it's a bit more specialized in understanding how the physiology of our body shapes our breathing mechanics. I'd say it's more nervous system informed. So with the window of tolerance, you go to a lot of these breathwork sessions nowadays and, everyone has these massive experiences because they're pumping them full of breath, right? So they have these out of body experiences and see their their grandma's dog or something. And it's all kind of pretty woo. Yeah. But with FBR, we're kind of gradually taking you outside your window and bringing you back in to create more long-term nervous system resilience.
And I felt like you were honoring my breath, my natural breath a little bit more. I seem to remember, I could be wrong, that the breath in conscious connected was sort of short, it faster and almost on a count. It was 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
2, 3 or something and you were just breathe in, breathe out.
Yeah.
Breathe in. So it was just it took me to a place where I still felt not I was in control, but I could take control if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I just felt that was a big difference.
Yeah, I think that's also another.
But do you think I should have breathed faster?
No, I don't think so. I think for the first session, we don't want you to, most of the time we don't want you to go into this massive experience that then you don't come back. And also that you're that maybe you couldn't hold. It depends what's going on in your life. If you go to a workshop and you've got all this stuff going on into your life and you've got all these people around you and then you're trying to mimic everyone else's breathing pattern, then you might go way outside your window of tolerance. You might have a panic attack. You might, it might not be what what your system needs, but I really like what you're saying around, your body just wanted to breathe like that, Yeah, whereas
the integration phase was so relaxing.
Yeah. And that's one of the key differences as well, is that we work with a bell curve. So most of the time we're going for activation for 30 minutes. And then the integration is equally as long. Whereas a lot of the other techniques that I've done, conscious connected breathing techniques, your integration is 5 or 10 minutes. That's just not enough time. Imagine
if I signed up, which I will, the next breath session I'm signing up, I'm coming for the integration.
Yeah,
I'm coming for the rest.
That's what Londoners need though, right?
Yeah.
We need more integration, relaxation. We need to be able to, sometimes when in my sessions, I actually do a much shorter peak. So I'll do 15 minutes of activation and then stick them into relaxation, integration.
I find that's what they need, yeah.
Or maybe, because maybe the actual edge is that they can't sit with themselves for, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes.
Yeah.
They're very good in activation, right? So a lot of people in London are very good in activation, but when you put them into, integration and relaxation, they'll start
getting uncomfortable.
Yeah, very uncomfortable.
Okay, so let's say there's a listener who is wants the facts. Maybe they just want the pragmatic, why would this help me? What would you give to somebody like that? The kind of information?
I would say there's I think first of all, what is breath work? I think breath work is any method that shifts our breathing pattern to influence our physiology or psychology, right? So I think that's breathwork as like an umbrella phase. And then I think breathwork is basically broken down into two different sections. You have your like mind-based tools, which are like box breathing, 4-7-8 breathing, where we're engaging the prefrontal cortex for a set outcome. For example, I'm going to breathe in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. So my brain is involved, and that's going to help me feel more relaxed. And that's what I was using when I was going over to Milan and I was scared of flying. But if you've got dysfunctional breathing mechanics, as in like your diaphragm doesn't drop, you know, you're breathing heavily in your chest, that's going to be quite difficult to use those mind-based tools because you're still going to be breathing in your chest. So that's when we come to the body-based methods, which are using the body, i.e. we're using sound, we're using movement, and we're using breath.
And touch.
And that's facilitated breath repatterning. You know, that's a refined form of conscious connected breathing where we're using an active inhale and a relaxed exhale. Active inhale, relaxed exhale.
Through the mouth.
We're basically, the way I look at it is we're basically dosing these ingredients, breath, sound, movement, body work, into the system, and we're seeing how the system responds. So it's like being a chef. You know, you're putting these ingredients into the plate.
And you're observing.
And you're observing. Exactly. You're observing. So we dose a little bit of breath. Okay, how does the system respond? What do they do? Is there movement in the eyes? Does their breath shape change? Okay, we'll put some movement in the system. Move their legs from side to side. Okay, how does their breath shape change? We're looking at how their system responds to stimulus. And that's
nice. I like that. Because it's not like, I'm going to do this and there's an expectation that you do this. It's, I'm going to do this and I'm going to see how you respond.
Yeah, exactly. You know, for me, it's massively, as I said earlier, it's massively changed my relationship to stress, which is just incredible, I think. Like that window of tolerance for me is just like the most fascinating concept. So now, like even thinking about setting up my own business a few years ago would have just sent me into a complete spiral meltdown. Now I can do something. So that's a tangible benefit, right? That's something that is actually like someone who's listening might be thinking, I've always wanted to start my own business, or, you know, I've always wanted to start a new hobby or do something that's outside of my comfort zone. Well, we can use this technique to put you into slightly more stressful situations on the mat or on the table with the appropriate safety. And then you can show up to life differently.
Yeah.
And that's massive, I think.
Yeah. It's like training. Yeah, because when you want to do these things that you've never done, there's risk involved. And it's almost training your system to be like, okay, I can take the risk and know I'll be okay.
Yeah. So that's a physiological benefit. We obviously have the psychological benefits. So it's basically, I think, physiological, psychological benefits, physiological, the stress. Also, in terms of our organs function as well. You know, I think that's what maybe hooked you when I first started talking about it, because I was talking about like all the different, like my kind of like fascination with organs. Yeah,
potentially.
Yeah. So when we're using this like diaphragmatic breath, so our diaphragm is dropping, we're creating pressure down into the lower organs. Blood flow improves. We have more oxygenation in our small intestine, large intestine, stomach, liver, and they work more efficiently from doing that. But a lot of the time, what I was going to say earlier was that we're breathing up in our upper chest all the time.
Yeah.
So the mechanics are off. So you can go to a conscious connected breathing workshop in London, a bigger one. You're not going to get the hands-on support to move the breathing mechanics. They might just keep breathing up here, and you can still have the big experience. You can still see all those different things from breathing up here. But what I'm really interested in is making sure that your breathing mechanics, i.e. diaphragm's dropping, ribs are flaring, that everything is working better. So then when you're going through your life, your day to day, you feel your breathing is helping you more. It's supporting you instead of actually like screwing you over.
Yeah, keeping you stuck in a bit of a cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
So what about the psycho? Sorry, I'm like, what about the psychological benefits?
the psychological benefits. Like what we were talking about earlier around like the emotional release.
Yeah.
I think that's like a big thing, right?
And accessing different, like you're moving from the prefrontal cortex.
The upper brain, yeah.
The upper brain.
The newer part of our brain. Basically to the lower brain, like which is like more primitive and it's like 500 million years old. And some people call it the reptilian brain as well. Yeah. But when we move from, when that prefrontal cortex, the kind of like the thinking brain, which is on all of the time during the day. When that goes quiet, we can go into the limbic system, and where in the limbic system, you have all these emotions and memories stored. So we can get into some of them and we can start to release them. We can start to look at them more rationally through, observation. So I think that...
And process more of what's going on in the subconscious.
Yeah.
Kind of shove down, just get through life.
100%.
Like it's just time and space to, let's air that out.
Yeah.
Work through it. Where a lot of our limiting beliefs live. So it can,
Exactly.
I found that when we did our session, you said set an intention at the beginning of the practice. And that carried through the whole session. And I remember observing beliefs going again, like, let's say I forget my intention, but say it was like more, I want to have more confidence or something, or something around that. The limiting belief that would have popped in was like, well, who are you to be putting yourself out there on film and video and podcast or whatever, like these limiting beliefs. And then it's kind of like, okay, I see you. I'm not going to attach to you because this is the work I really want to do. And I'm not going to let you get in the way of that, my limiting beliefs. So I noticed those thoughts coming up and just being able to let them pass.
So interesting though, isn't it?
So that was the bigger takeaway for me, was the mind work. I know you were working with the body and that was what you could notice. But what I took away was like, I felt like I was able to release some stuff, release some fear and some beliefs that I don't want to hold on to.
Yeah, that's super interesting because you don't, during your day, that belief is never really seen.
Yeah.
Right, because as we were saying earlier, we spend most of the time in the conscious brain, right? But when we make those unconscious beliefs conscious, we can then start to change them, right? We can actually start to look at them and go, does that actually serve me right now? Is that a belief that I've actually come up with myself, or is that based on, what my parents or what my, the people around me when I was younger helped me form? But that belief is in the lower brain, but it's also going to be held in the body as a kind of survival response, right? So that's the thing I really like about this work, is we are targeting the mind, but then we are also, when your brain is in that altered state, the body just releases what it needs to release. So that's when I have these sessions with clients, a lot of the time I see, they'll be like in the integration and relaxation phase, and their body will just be moving like that. And I'll go to them at the end, I'll go, did you know that your arm was just like going like that? Or did you have any like previous injury in your arm or something? Because it was just literally going like that. And they're like, I didn't even feel that. And that's amazing, because that is just the body, the natural rhythm of the body is trying to like process like these, and actually like heal us. So most of the time we don't need more mind, we don't need a lot of the time these mind-based breathing techniques. Actually, we just need to surrender to the body and just let the body tell us what it wants to tell us. And this is what this technique's all about.
Yeah.
It's like the antidote to like living in London, right?
Yeah.
We've all got so much mind, we're all running around and everything. Okay, let's surrender to the body.
Yeah.
Let's get you into that place, and then let's see what kind of emerges. And sometimes it's people like, releasing like tears. Sometimes people are laughing. Sometimes, people have had an amazing amount of like mental clarity. I've had a couple of sessions, had one session 2 weeks ago where a client came in, said, I don't really have much of an intention. I go, okay, fine, let's just breathe then. And I started really working on like in his abdomen area. I felt like a lot of tension is like large and small intestine. And we have like our whole different nervous system down here, right? Like, and 90% of the nerves that go from the gut to the brain are afferent, right? So it's going that way, 90% that way, 10% that way.
90% from gut to brain.
Yeah, gut to brain. So feeling into his gut, I felt all of this tension. I started getting into it, and his face just went red immediately. And he'd had this like massive like hot flush. There was loads of tension there. And then after I said to him, like, what did you experience during the session? He just said, like, I just had so much creativity. Yeah. I just had these like crazy, I know, right, he almost like wanted to leave because he wanted to go and do the things that he was thinking. So yeah, we kind of really work into the body. I love going into the different organs. I love just people experiencing breath in different areas of their body that they haven't experienced it before. Yeah. If you've been breathing up here, shallow chest breathing, your whole life, and then all of a sudden, breath obviously stays in the lungs, but the pressure goes down here. You start experiencing breath like I did down into these areas. it's life.
It does change your life.
It changes your life.
Yeah.
Like really, like not even joking. It literally just changes your life. And obviously, like vagus nerve runs from the brainstem down to like our lower abdomen area, and that's the key branch of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is like our rest and digest response. So when we start bringing breath down here, we're massaging the vagus nerve, as well as creating more space for our organs to operate in, and also bringing more oxygenation to these organs. So everything starts working a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And when you start when you start putting pressure into, like the other day I had a client where I was into his liver, and the liver is our biggest organ. And I was into his liver and he started crying straight away. I was like, wow, this is crazy. But that like supports him so much, because he's now able to like release that emotion, and he's able to then show up to life like slightly differently.
Yeah.
And that makes me very happy.
Yeah. And what I found really interesting before is, because there might be somebody listening that's like, you know what? I do want to change this thing in my life, be it like a job or a relationship, or, oh, I want to get on a plane and travel to Southeast Asia, but I'm terrified of flying, or whatever it is that and they're curious, okay, to use the breath to maybe expand their window of tolerance, to take that risk. There's still like what you've experienced, and I've experienced it too. You take the risk, like let's say you're ready to change your job in this new job. So now you are a breath facilitator. Now I am a yoga studio owner. I've had the studio since last January, a year and a half. So actually not that long. I still come across imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
And I still have the limiting beliefs, even though left New York, I've moved to London, I've started the studio, like I've taken big steps. I should feel like, okay, I've taught yoga for 15 years.
Yeah,
like I know what I'm doing, but I still feel the like beliefs of, oh my gosh, or yeah, am I good enough to do this? But then, and that is still normal. And you were saying that I still feel the imposter syndrome, but now I have the ability to have a bit more space from it. And like, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's actually because you're doing something new.
Yeah, this is a great
because I think we say the word imposter syndrome, but actually I think relating it to how it feels in the body and how it looks in your mind brings it a little more down to earth.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't one of those things that I thought I was going to have. You know, I thought I'd come back from Bali and I would kind of like just drop back into the breathwork practice, set up my business and start doing one-on-one sessions with clients, all of those things that I've done. But then you still carry around this kind of like, you know, like it's kind of like unworthiness, or like, yeah, you feel like you're kind of like intruding in someone else's patch. It's very strange. You know, I've gone from being in an office, showing up 5 days a week, to all of a sudden running my own business, not having structure unless I'm kind of putting my own structure in place, which is very different. And actually doing like one-on-one sessions with clients on Harley Street. Like, you know, it's just such a big difference, right?
Yeah.
So at times it feels amazing, and at times it feels like, what the hell am I doing? And that's what I think this is helpful for the listeners, because it's about going into these new experiences with open eyes, knowing that not everything's perfect. When I was working in a job, I always thought, if I get to the other side, if I do set up my own business, and if I do something I'm really passionate about, it's all going to be easy, and I'm going to feel regulated every day. I've got it. I've got the formula now, but it's the daily practice of, I always go and practice my breath.
Yeah. I mean, this is my, I think like 200.
Yoga, right?
This is my 200th like podcast episode.
Is it really?
Or like 198 or something.
Wow.
That's a decent amount of episodes.
Yeah.
And still, pre-cameras rolling, Will and I sit down. I feel really comfortable talking to you. Like but I still was like, oh, I see the little nerves coming up, and we still had to take this big sigh. Like it's I think always going to happen.
100%.
I've been doing it for 5 years, this podcast.
Wow, that's incredible for you.
So it's like, but I still get like, oh,
yeah, yeah.
What am I doing?
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely mental, isn't it? But you know, as you're saying, having these self practices that we can return to, and you know,
a single sigh helped.
A single sigh helps a lot. you know, we can do a few sighs when we're in the session. But yeah, like sometimes in the session we'll do sighs, we'll do ohms, we'll make all those types of noises because it's going against the grain, isn't it, to what we actually feel normally comfortable doing. And it's so interesting.
Finding that edge.
Yeah, finding that edge. Are you comfortable in expression? How do you feel making a sound, you know, when you don't normally make sound? But some people don't really like that. So let's go into that. Let's explore why you're not comfortable in expression. And it's always like there's the micro on the map, but then how does that relate to life?
I was going to say, this is making me think about like a parent. And like, we don't want to just keep our kids in the cave, in the bubble, in the safety. Like, we want them to be safe. Like, that is like number one. But also, I want to observe and see, what is your edge? And like, let's go try the sashimi or whatever. I remember seeing this little girl eat sashimi, and she's like this cute little Aussie chick. And I was like, that is so cool. My parents are like, here's your fried chicken finger. I'm like, wait, what is the edge? Let's find it. Let's taste it.
Yeah.
I mean, very bougie to have your 4-year-old eat sashimi, but anyways.
Yeah, but still, I like it.
I like the idea.
Yeah, and then like, how comfortable are you with touch?
Yeah.
You know, touch it. Yeah, and touch is our like first language as humans. So like, how comfortable are you receiving touch? How comfortable are you receiving support during the session? There's always like little micro things that we can put into the session that hopefully help you show up to life differently. And that's what I've experienced in my own life. So, you know, I feel like I'm only talking from what I've experienced, but you know, I've been on the breathwork journey now for like 2.5 years, and kind of landed with facilitated breath repatterning. Yeah, because I feel it's like it's a lovely community of people that are teaching this, but two, it's just grounded in like nuance and science and physiology and things that I think are super important. And I think with a lot of other breathwork techniques, it's like, let's put a hand here and see what happens. But I want to put a hand somewhere so I can change the breath mechanics. Because when I change the breath mechanics and you start breathing differently in your body, that's going to change how you show up to life, right? If you can breathe more in your belly, you're going to feel it much easier to feel regulated, as we described about the vagus nerve running from the brainstem down to the lower abdomen. Yeah. You know, you're just massaging that. Yeah. Diaphragm's moving down.
Oh, I love it. I could talk about breath.
Yeah. I wish I could talk about breath more.
There's still more.
I know.
More. I would love, if any of the listeners are based in London or the surrounding area, you can come see Will. Like,
100%. Yeah.
In person only, right?
Yeah, I'm in person only. So I'm doing one-on-one sessions, typically in Harley Street, but I do some here at the Space as well. Yeah. It's such an amazing studio. I'm going to start doing groups shortly. Okay. So I'll probably do like max 5 people, but there's one other FBR practitioner up in Nottingham. So if we come together, we'll probably do like 10 max.
So there's only 2 FBR practitioners in London?
There's 2 in the UK. There's a lady as well that comes back and forth from Australia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Niche.
It's quite niche.
You do like the niche.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll put your website in the show notes so people can just read more about you.
Yeah.
Potentially book a session with you. At the Space in Southwest London, we're having a breath clinic with Will.
From 2 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Great.
And we've got 4 slots, 1 hour. So come along, experience your breath. It's for anyone that is, maybe feeling like overwhelmed, anxious, that is in this kind of like phase when they're maybe like not sure about their career, not sure about their relationship, that just needs some like clarity. Yeah. So it needs some clarity, it needs some more self-trust. And that's hopefully what I can give to you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Will. This was wonderful.
Yeah, thanks.
And we're going to end the episode the way that we always do, which you will love, with just a full breath in.
Oh, I love it.
And a full breath out. Nice. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.